Eduardo. Test. Is there anyone here who can validate that I am actually doing... Hello? I am live, bro. Okay, cool. Hello. It's always a gamble with this stuff. Like, thank you. I do feel validated. Hey guys. How's everyone doing? I think that I've shared this everywhere. Oh no. Got to share to the Discord. Is everyone here in the Discord? Discord channel is actually quite excellent. If you're not there yet, but damn it, I have the laptop set up like around my work computer, so I keep on like gesturing at control implements that aren't actually what's on the laptop. Having multiple control stuff, like, you know, you got two mice or two keyboards, you're going to be consistently reaching for the wrong one. It's really annoying. This lighting is bad. This is real bad. Oh man, I should have tested this some more. Oh. Let's turn this down. Get a little mood lighting going on. Oh, no, that's still awful. All right, well, it's just going to be this for the foreseeable future. Sorry, guys. Yeah, the links for the curious. So I was planning to fill in, like, inevitably over the course of the last live stream. Everybody kept on saying, like, "Have you read this? Have you read this?" And I was like, I haven't read any of these things. And so rather than just what I did last time, which was assemble a list like on the side, I was going to do that as well, but also like put the list of stuff that Josh has to read in the description so that every kind of, you know, enjoy the Sudoku that I am amassing just by having one of these. You say more of Josh's house, yeah. I mean, it's not much. Like, this is actually my wife's. This is a platter that she got in Tuscany, so it is proudly displayed along with some other things up here. How you doing, Zykos? Sufficiently recuperated from the D&D session? It looked like you guys had a lot of fun after I left. A history reading list. Of course I would like a link to a history reading list. Sleeping until 10 a.m. Yeah, same here. I had to drive. I drove 4 hours out to Fresno and had dinner and then drove 4 hours back and crashed. So that reminds me, I've got coffee around here somewhere. I should consume that. Ion officially became a lady. Yeah, officially. Too bad the badge of office is in the possession of a notable rogue who has a hatred for governance. Thanks, John. Hey, Diego, what's up? I promise that I'm not trying to like do the parasocial relationship thing. I am merely calling you by the name that your thing shows up in the chat. It's like if you want to cultivate a friendship with me out exterior to the whole YouTube apparatus, then I'm game. But the whole parasocial thing kind of like squicks me out a little bit. S risks. Is S risk I might have encountered it before, but like the only thing that I'm immediately aware of is like X risk. So is S risk like a primary like you? Brian Tomasik's essays on reducing suffering. I haven't. There's the first one. Let's see if I can't edit this live. Okay, so Brian Tomasik's essays on reducing suffering. Okay, edit links for the curious. Oh, I am literally typing on the wrong keyboard right now. Remember what I said at the beginning? This is going to be a consistent problem. Brian. And we'll, instead of links for the curious, we'll call this reading list. How about that? S risks. Save. Okay. Risks of astronomical suffering. Is astronomical a literal term or just like lots of things are suffering and it's bad? Am I interested in geopolitics? I mean, how could you not be? It's kind of like running stuff right now. Thank you for the 25K. Congratulations. What? Newton's over there whining at me. Come here. Prisoners of geography. All right. Let's put that on the list as well. Reading lists. Prisoners of geography. Sounds like an argument that would resonate with me. Ripple doesn't have a YouTube account? What is he even doing? Age of Malthusian industrialism. Wow. All right. We've been live for like, I don't know, like a couple of minutes or 8 minutes now, and I've already got a reading list that has probably exceeded what I have read in the past like 3 months. Mathematical intuitionism, mathematical Platonism. Yeah. So there have been a few things that have like kind of cropped up on my philosophical radar recently. And one of them is pragmatism. I've been very slowly like making my way through a series of books on philosophical pragmatism, which is essentially an de-emphasis on oh, hello. Hold on. It is a crime if there's a cute animal asking to sit in your lap and you don't let him sit in your lap. Say hello. Hello. Yeah. So pragmatism is this like philosophy that de-emphasizes the role of like pure theory and is more about like what you do with it. Like there isn't like a capital T truth about say mathematics, there is only like what success you get from utilizing it. And in that sense, mathematics is just as true as any other like epistemic category that you want to talk about. That is, if you use it and it works for you, then it is as true as anything else that you might claim to have a model of. So how am I? I'm surviving, man. Like this is it's been rough. Like my wife is actually away for a month. She is doing ER services in a different part of the state. That's this. I was talking about driving for 8 hours last night. It was pretty wild, but yeah. Ecology against capitalism. Ecology against capitalism. All right. Let's get that. Favorite musical artists. Well, recently I was listening to I am still mourning the loss of Daft Punk. So I've been trying to branch out and listen to some other Daft Punk adjacent like EDM kind of just fun music like that. And so I was listening to some Justice and the Justice Spotify playlist. It is like I'm fond of saying that I only enjoy the like cotton candy versions of any musical genre. Like there are people who can listen to jazz odysseys and are just like, yeah, it's about the notes that they don't play, or how do they even know they're together and stuff like that. And it's like, I am not that sophisticated. Like I have some musical theory background, but I'm not on that level. Primary job. My primary job is as a design engineer, which is and I work for a product consulting firm. So big companies or just companies in general come to us and say, hey, you guys have expertise with like plastic part design. And recently, like my current job, I'm using a CAD package that's called Creo that has a lot of like niggling details, and like it's very unintuitive to use. And I have been trying to cram it into my head. I'm from SolidWorks land. So anyway, the thing that I do is essentially I sit in CAD and solve mechanical design problems for 8 hours a day and document them in a way that is hopefully helpful to the client. What's your take on virtue ethics? I have been more and more convinced of a sort of moral pluralist account where there are lots of different things that are like pulling us in different directions, like different moral intuitions about what sorts of things are good, and that the like ethical accounts of this is the rule they highlight like an important part of the landscape. Like, yes, suffering is bad, and like breaking like violating your duties is bad, and cultivating virtue is good, and that sort of stuff. But all of these intuitions are pulling us in different directions. And so if you don't like want to bite a bullet and say, no, all of these other ones are irrelevant, then, or bite a different bullet and say, no, morality is kind of just a social construct, or it doesn't really exist, or things like that. I think that a pluralist account, like that we have different moral obligations, and they pull us in different directions with different intensities, and they can defeat each other if they are sufficiently strong. That's very compelling to me. Oh, Ripple. Correct theory of personal identity. I wring my hands about it a lot. Like I said before, I've been on a pragmatist kick recently. So closed individualism, empty individualism. I don't know those things by name. I might know the concepts if you unpack them a little bit, but the pragmatist, more pragmatist account of personal identity would be something like personal identity is whatever that, like, trying to identify the capital T truth about it or create the perfect model is kind of a fool's errand. It's just like what model works best. And how did the trip go? It's sort of a cop-out answer, to be honest. Like, pragmatism is attractive to me because it dissolves a lot of like big philosophical problems that are otherwise intractable, I think. How did the trip go? It was fine. We had dinner. It was lovely. Happy Pi Day. Happy Tau over 2 day, if you're one of those. 4:3 aspect ratio. This is a very old webcam. It's very old. I apologize if you are missing the parts of the shot of this corner of my 1-bedroom apartment that are like here and here. If you really want to see those, I'll take a picture afterward and post it to something. It's not that exciting. Marshall McLuhan, Harry Innis. Nope. I haven't read those. Don't know who they are. Going on the list. Marshall McLuhan. I think that might sound familiar. Let me look that up. Marshall McLuhan. Canadian philosopher. Media theory. Interesting. Understanding media. Hot and cool media. It's not allowing an extension of ourselves. Huh. Sort of like a commentary on the interactivity of media and what is. Ripple is whining on the Discord. Sign up with a BS email address. Get on a YouTube account. Get in here. Oh, Medium is the message. I thought that was earlier. I mean, I know that. I have heard people like make arguments on that account before, but or about that before. Do you think we have an obligation to hold true beliefs? Idea Channel has made a video that I must have been exposed to McLuhan's ideas on multiple occasions. I just don't. I don't think that I've read the source material yet. Definitely need to get that on the reading list. Do we have an obligation to hold true beliefs? An obligation talks is like a sort of a morality kind of an argument or a normative statement about an ought. I think that necessarily if you buy some sort of moral realist account, then you are if you buy moral realism at all, then you're immediately invested in an idea of like some sort of epistemic commitment as well. Because if you don't know what the hell is going on, if you don't know if you have false beliefs and you act on those false beliefs and you end up committing like moral violations, then you have committed moral violations, and that's bad. So if you have any obligations at all, then you must have obligations to have true beliefs of some sort. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? I guess it depends what you mean by very few. Like, I'm sort of I don't know. I can't imagine thinking enough of like my particular like philosophies and whatnot, like just little pet theories that I come up with, and thinking that they're somehow like important truths and I just need to get the word out or something like that. I think that a lot of I've had some ideas that I've kind of laid out there about like hiring practices and stuff like that. I have invented what I think are novel like syntheses of ideas, but I can't see elevating them and saying these are important truths. That's not really my gig. I'm just some asshole who does CAD, you know. High goes over my head. Yeah, same here. Aren't beliefs something you hold because you hold them? It's hard to claim an obligation when the beliefs you hold are just a state of being, not a choice. I've heard this account before, and I do disagree that belief is just something that happens to you. I think that you like the whole basis of things like cognitive behavioral therapy and you know, mantras and stuff like that is that like by acts that you perform, you can cultivate belief of some stripe. You can cultivate like some sort of investment or make some ideas more or less automatic habits. And I think that like you can chase the like free will rabbit hole in either direction. You could say like, well, you're just predisposed to do the thing or whatever, like, or whatever it is that you want. But I think that for human scale conception of these things, like you might have a responsibility, like an epistemic responsibility to believe true things might translate to a responsibility to like read diverse news sources or to think critically about your existing beliefs or something like that. So I think that there is some meat to that. Magnus Vinding believes in moral realism. Lots of very smart people do. This is an important point. Like if you ever get somebody who's like, oh, X philosophy or Y philosophy is garbage, like you go to the Phil Paper survey and you just search for it, and you'll find out that like 25% of professional academic philosophers think that it is true in some fashion that they're willing to back. What do you think of cryonics? Okay. So the cryonics thing, I actually had sort of a long like rant about this on a particular Discord server, and I sort of buy that it's like it's a gamble of some sort. It's very Pascal's wagery in its framing. Like if people who defend it as the objectively right way to spend a bunch of money, you know, they tend to elevate it as like this. It is how much would you gamble on a chance at immortality, which is a very Pascal's wagery argument. And I think that for me, there are obvious problems with that sort of framing, right? There's reasons that Pascal's wager is not a popular argument, that a lot of people have problems with it, why it sounds wrong. And I think that if you're, I don't begrudge anybody who thinks that it might be a good idea. I do think that it's sort of like at this perfect intersection. Oh, hello. Oh. Well, we're doing this now. Okay. Yes, I love you too. Okay. I'm doing a live stream right now. One second. Anyway, so I think that there are there's a reasonable case to be made there, but I don't think that it is. I think that it lies at a perfect intersection where it is just tempting enough, it's like a tech bro fantasy. People who are raised on a bunch of science fiction love to think of humanity's future as having godlike technology and all this other stuff. But I think that the actual best investment of a bunch of money might be to stave off some of the things that might cause civilizational collapse or otherwise dominating risks, the things that are actually going to happen. If global warming just wipes out substantial amounts of infrastructure such that cryogenics fails, then what the hell are you even doing? Oh yeah, I froze myself and then the world boiled itself. Who is the best dog? This is the best dog. This is Newton. He is the best. Any good criticisms to Rawls' veil of ignorance? Yeah. The podcast Very Bad Wizards actually did a great they covered Rawls' veil of ignorance and covered some of the good rebuttals to it. Sort of it assumes a set of liberal values, and that you can't derive a liberal society from assuming liberal values and then claim that you've planted the flag somewhere. Yud thinks the concept of free will is meaningless. Okay. Yud thinks lots of things. Frozen water grows in volume. We need to develop antifreeze proteins from critters that live under the ice. Yeah, so generally for cryogenics, they purge the water from your body with some sort of preservative. Writing video on places other than YouTube. I have toyed around with writing. Oh. He's snooting the microphone here. I have toyed around with doing blogging or long form content, maybe a book or something like that. I think that a lot of people misinterpret me in text, and I feel like I get less communication errors in sort of a video format where people can see where I kind of roll my eyes or or sigh in an exasperated fashion. At least it seems like more people. It's weird to say that YouTube comments seem to get me, but YouTube comments very rarely, occasionally they'll. Okay, there you go. Good boy. YouTube comments will occasionally just miss the entire thrust of the message, but often they make the YouTube comments under THUNK videos tend to make very poignant and relevant points about whatever it is that I'm saying. And I feel like I get into nitpicky, weird phrasing arguments in text. So I kind of like the video medium. I don't know. True responsibility to pet all the dogs. Correct. Be careful about YouTube terms of service. Who has ever read terms of service? Like, I think the entirety of the YouTube terms of service are probably pretty constraining. And it's all legal boilerplate. It's also they have something to fall back on if they want to do something. You know, it's all about like what the lawyers can swing for you. People who try to bring rather futuristic ideas into the modern political discourse, like the United States Transhumanist Party. I backed Zoltan Istvan and his campaign against human mortality. And I'm kind of embarrassed about that. It was in a more tech bro phase of my life. I think that there are real political issues, real political problems that deserve attention, and that we're focused on many of them. Like the political discourse tends to be a particular way, not because people are stupid or people who do politics are stupid, but because they are actually important things that people care about. And so like if you zag instead of zigging with these sort of like transhumanist ideas or far future, like what we really need to be focused on is like Mars colonies. I think that you might lose scope of things like people are working very hard and starving to death. People are very concerned about the decay of culture or civilization. Like these are things that people are worried about. And the fact that some nerd really liked reading sci-fi when he was growing up and thinks that that's very important. Like, okay, that's cool. Everybody gets to value different things, but sad how much futurism is used to manipulate people to benefit some shady individuals. Yes. Yeah. That is a thing that happens. Cryogenics company goes out of business. The thing, like a bunch of corpses remain corpses and don't get resurrected, or don't get anything done to them. Take on evolutionary psychology. EvoPsych. So there's on the THUNK Discord channel, there is an emoji that is from sort of like an EvoPsyche paper. And good EvoPsych is good and bad EvoPsych is bad. And armchair EvoPsych is universally bad. Like people who are not, anthropologists or psychologists or evolutionary researchers of any stripe who develop pet theories about the ancestral environment or why humans are a particular way, or like build models out of this stuff. If it works for them, great, cool. But I feel like there is usually a normative bent to these sorts of arguments, and that's why women don't belong in tech, or that's why this, that, or the other. And when you're using evolutionary psychology as like a sort of just so story to exonerate like modern aspects of culture, which are not necessarily like arbitrary, it's entirely possible that there's some biological basis or substrate for it. But I think that there's a lot of bad EvoPsych. Hi, Anakim Luke. Oh, Anakim. I have seen you in the comments before. People in charge of real cryogenics facilities are sketchy as a rule. Yeah, I kind of buy that. I think that some of them are true believers, but they are still sketchy. I'd rather pet you than the dog. Goodness. Should I undo another button? Is that where this is going? How many buttons does YouTube terms of service forbid? Evolutionary psychology is a way to excuse bad arguments. Yep, absolutely. extremist antinatalists, all life should go extinct, no life equals no suffering. I think that antinatalism is it's an interesting, like, you're combining two sort of like different trains of thought, and it leads somewhere. I think that if you it requires a sort of moral normativity that supersedes people's desires, which is not necessarily I think that it doesn't, like, you have to make a series of very not necessarily unintuitive, but like very firm commitments in order to get to antinatalism. And saying that all life should go extinct, it is Pi Day, or as I was saying before, Tau over 2 day. Yes, that is the long and short of my position on. That's a much better and more succinct way of phrasing my position on cryogenics, is that we've got more problems in 40 years than in the next 40 years than that we should probably be paying for instead. Terms of service aren't hurtful. I have a friend who is like real big shot lawyer. And whenever I get to pick his brain about law, he's always it always feels very like slippery. And he's always like, well, you could tell a story like this. And that's how a lot of lawyers think. And I think that that's kind of how law is in practice. So like terms of service, you get into terms of service, and like it's not like a legally binding contract in the sense that there are no unambiguous interpretations of the text. The terms of service exist as a thing that a lawyer could hold up in court and say, look, like, they agreed to this and they didn't do this, so they are in violation of this contract, and therefore we're not liable for the damages or something like that. And that kind of story can get you somewhere, but it's not like a binary thing. It's not software. All evils arise from the denial of death. The terror mitigation theory or something like that would argue that all good things arise from the denial of death, like all of culture. Even if there is a biological basis for something, fuck biology. Yeah, biological basis does not imply like good or should be maintained. Am I a hug person? I'm absolutely a hug person. Became a hug person and then the pandemic hit. Yeah, that's rough. It's been rough for all of us, man. Infantipult hypothesis. That is an excellent word, and it sounds. I imagine that it involves a siege engine of some sort and babies. Sufficiently advanced technology could solve all social problems. Maybe like holodeck, like VR tech. If every human being could be embedded in a like their own reality of their own creation, it would do a lot. I think that there are still people who would feel that there is a moral obligation that lies outside of their own personal experience, you know? So. If high IQ people stop reproducing, you might create an idiocracy in the future. I have my doubts. I have my doubts. The one of the upshots of the cultural evolution theory, which has been like really just kind of grinding away in the background for me recently, is that IQ is like you've got this towering graph, this towering bar chart that is cultural knowledge, that is the accumulated cultural know-how of like our cultural evolutionary history. And then at the top, there's a little stripe. There's a tiny little stripe that is an individual's IQ. And the variance in outcomes from like an individual's IQ, I can't see meaning anything substantial beyond idiocracy. And if a society like stops flourishing, if a culture stops flourishing, then it has a tendency to self-correct or go extinct. So if life doesn't go extinct, the heat death of the universe will get depressing. It's already depressing, man. Gzob. Oh, Gzob. So many good comments. Any strong opinions on strong long-termism? People in the future matter much more than the people living today because they outnumber us by a huge margin. Oh, there's like the whole discounting thing. There's the I honestly, I haven't invested a lot of thought in it. It seems like a difficult argument to sustain in the face of just like our standard intuitions about morality, and also the unpredictability of the future. Like, if you get into, I'm sure that the people who are invested in it have put more thought into it than I have, but just from a just from the basic things that I know about it, assuming that the human population of the future is going to be like exponentially larger than the current population, I think it's defensible. It's a thing that could happen. I don't know that it will happen. So from that uncertainty, you kind of have to hedge your assertions accordingly. Bad Evopsych oversimplifies context and explains a lot of non-genetic inheritance as genetics, and tends to think that everybody. This is Camilla. Camilla is the real cult of personality of THUNK. We're all thankful for her shepherding the volcano and arranging the list. Tend to think of Western values as universal needs. Weird people is a great counter argument. Yep, a lot of science done on college students. The needs of people that don't exist yet. It seems like a very good way to waste brain power. And yet, we would probably critique somebody who had a child and without any means or plans to support them, you know? Genetic pacification and European outbreeding. Don't get into anthropology off with Camilla. She is like seriously educated on this and will clean your clock on this. All right. See you, Zyke. See you later. How do you approach study of a new unfamiliar concept? Do you jump into it or have some structured way, general steps you find yourself taking to approach the subject? My constant bugaboo is like keyword bingo, something like that. Keyword Yahtzee, maybe, where I go to Google Scholar and I type in every combination of words that I can think of lead to an existing vein of research or thought. And then I look for stuff that has the most citations, and I assume that those are the ones that are the most influential or the most right sometimes. For things that have like an obvious, like, antinatalism, that is a thing that I could just look up on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. If there's some existing resource that has like a very neat summary of it, that's always great. I don't have as much time as I would like to dive into primary sources. Like sitting down and reading a 300, 500, 700 page book about pragmatism is in the cards for me, but I have here. Let me show you the book that I've got around here. Where is it? Where's the button? It was actually in this bowl, or under this bowl, which has my lunch in it. I have been sneaking snacks every now and again. But I've been making my way through this book for like months now. It's really embarrassing. Like I'm like about here-ish. My reading speed is atrocious when it comes to like primary source material. Interventionism, is it avoidable? It's obviously avoidable. You can wait for things to happen to you and then say that, at least we didn't meddle. I do think that it is, it's difficult in an increasingly like global environment where the things that I put up on YouTube are visible and can affect things in other places very easily. And people will say, well, it's been like that for years. I think that especially with the advent of the internet, that you get more community building across like geopolitical borders, traditional geopolitical borders. And that's different. So I think that in some sense, interventionism is like, I am not smart enough to have an informed opinion about like what sort of wars we should be fighting or what political things require intervention. Like I couldn't come up with a rule for it. I couldn't tell you what current like wars we're fighting or places that we have troops stationed that we should or shouldn't have troops stationed. It's way above my pay grade, but I do tend toward a sort of a leftist, non-colonialist sort of view, where if people report being happy, they don't need you to like come in and make things right, then you're and you like assert yourself anyway. That seems obviously bad, right? Like I said, it's way too level for me to have an informed opinion about. 6ix9ine's work, nice. No, I'm not familiar. I will add that to the list. Oh, bumped the microphone there. Well, first I'm going to check to make sure that this isn't just like some porn site. Who's 6ix9ine? Gumo. American rapper. Awesome. Oh, he's got like a sort of like a hand sign. I dig it. I'm into it. I'm adding it to the list. Okay. Cool. The AGI thing. Yeah. Humans should just choose to go extinct because AGI is superior. To me, that was unfathomable. Superior what? There are people who are so invested in the idea of meritocracy that they would be willing to jump into the jaws of a utility monster of some sort. And if there is and also so invested in the idea of intelligence as the primary indicator of moral value. So like a paperclip optimizer could be superior at any sort of strategy revolving around optimizing paperclips. And a lot of people are just like, well, it's better than us. So we should just like roll over and let it turn us into paperclips. Noacetol paradox. Noacetol. I don't know this one. This is that doing a live stream exposes my ignorance. What is the noacetol? I got some weird results for MILFs. If you could describe what the paradox is, I would be happy to tell you what I think about it. Mitchell Heisman's argument. Any TV show that you enjoyed and would recommend? It's like the TV that I watch is like home renovation shows and stuff like that. Guys, it would be really nice to have a house and to be able to like knock down walls and do like I can do all that stuff. I'm pretty handy, and so it's sort of a catharsis kind of a thing. It's just like, oh, thank God they put in new shutters or something. TV show that I would recommend. I always recommend Connections. Like that is how my brain works is James Burke's Connections, seasons 1, 2, and 3. They're all fantastic. Camilla unpacking the breadth her knowledge about anthropology and epigenetics and all of this other stuff. Why should we care that it's superior at some goal? It's not like there's a specific goal intrinsic to the universe that we should achieve. Yeah, like a main quest. Yeah, people have value for reasons that are not them being smart or making good paperclips or being very good at whatever it is that they choose to do. Why are so many philosophers left wing? There's, I think that there's a correlation between if I were to kind of paint a picture here, so left-wingism for me is sort of like a focus on social responsibility. Whereas right-wingism is a focus, well, at least in the US, it kind of breaks down this way. You've got left-wing social responsibility. You are your brother's keeper, sort of a thing. And then right-wing is sort of individual responsibility, like you should pull your weight, sort of a thing. And I think that academia tends to like academia in general is very much the model of, especially science. Like science is a collaborative process, and anybody who is a big shot like scientist will tell you that they are standing on the shoulders of giants, that there is this like it's a social process by which we all move forward together. And I think that those kind of go together, you know, like you don't go into academia and develop this sort of community of where like you would have absolute, like a lot of right wing is kind of like independence, and there is no such thing as like maybe in mathematics where you have like some weirdo who goes off into a shed in the woods and like toodles around for a while and then comes out with some revolutionary theorem about, I don't know, Fermat or something like that. Fermat, if you will. But, you know, there's a social element and a social responsibility that comes with being a scientist or being involved in academia, where you're connected to this body of knowledge that is, I don't know, that's sort of my like off the dome, like why that might be the case. And philosophers obviously have to be in academia. You can't make it as a philosopher on your own, unless you appeal to like some political movement or something like that. Political freedom is possible without economic freedom. I don't. Like it depends on what you mean by political freedom, but for me, politics is the like allocation and utilization of power over other people. And so if you are subject to somebody else's like economic designs, then you are not politically free. There is power that is being exercised over you. Why should we care about continuing to exist? Because we do. There's no should. Don't have to be handy to knock down walls. I've done it on accident. Well, if the person who owned the apartment that I live in right now just let me like go to town, I could probably increase the value of this by like 1.5 times, but she's not going to do that. Left-wingers are more likely to challenge their fundamental beliefs. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right wing is tradition, and things are the way they are for a good reason, sort of a thing. Philosophers are very invested in like picking stuff apart. That makes sense. Also come up with mail bombs. Yep. Oh, Ted. The Industrial Revolution, and so on and so forth. Knowledge is shared. Free as air. Pinker, the stinker. Oh, sounds like you have an opinion already. He's a smart guy. He's real quick on his feet, which is very impressive. And he's got a lot of ideas. Retributive justice. Do evil people deserve to suffer? Beatrice here is setting me up because I have been known to beat this particular horse in the THUNK Discord for a while. I think that that we emphasize ethical systems that are very easy to justify to a point. So if you say, well, this is wrong because that person is suffering, it's very easy to understand. It's very like one-to-one relationship. You're good. The thoughts on, so retributive justice, the idea that justice is a mistake is, or that notion is driven by an observation that frequently it goes awry, that you or someone like punish it, like acts out in vengeance, and in so doing commits, like goes over the top or does so for bad reasons or something like that. And it's difficult to justify. Like there's you say, well, you've increased the amount of suffering in the world, and we have all sort of collectively accepted that suffering is like the primary measure of what makes a thing moral or immoral. But at some point you have to ask, well, what justifies suffering is the basis for that? And the answer to that is not quite straightforward, but we don't ask that question. I think that retributive justice, that people get what they deserve, is another thing, another moral intuition that we all share on some level. If somebody tortures a cat, I don't want them to have a slice of cake. I don't like, despite the fact that them having a slice of cake would make them happier, would increase the total amount of happiness in the world. I don't want them to have a slice of cake. And there isn't a rigorous philosophical underpinning for that desire. That's just my moral intuition. That's just how it works. The same as I don't like the cat suffering. So I like I said before, I'm sort of a pluralist mentality where we have these different moral intuitions, and so I do think that it's in there. It's part of the palette, if you will. Ever questioned their fundamental beliefs or philosophers? That's what philosophy is, right? Like definitionally. Terminal goals are arbitrary. Yeah. The Nordic model. The homogeneity. Yeah. So the US has a cultural touchstone of being a melting pot. That is part of our cultural heritage. A lot of people have sort of rejected it recently. Oh, 6ix9ine guy was jailed for sexual misconduct. Ah, man. Okay. Now we have to get into this, right? Can't sued for alleged copyright infringement. His obscene chain collection. How the Tekashi 6ix9ine documentary made an action figure into an artful monster. Post homophobic joke. Yeah, I mean, I will sample his music. This is like uncomfortably adjacent to the cancel culture debate or discussion or whatever. I think that his music, I think that it can be enjoyed independent of who he is as a person. Maybe if you know enough about him, then you can't disentangle those, or you shouldn't. Nordic model. Yeah. Homogeneity. Yeah. So like the US being a melting pot is, it's a good, I like that. I like that as a model for, a culture or for a country, where a lot of things can coexist side by side. It's outside of my pay grade to say whether any particular system instantiated in the United States would work or would not work. There are people who are way smarter than me about economics and like social welfare and the relationship between those things. I tend to lean more towards like there's like take some taxes. Like we have traditionally had high tax rates and it was fine. Maybe we could try that again. Goodness and badness of plain pleasure are directly observable. Right-wingers are conservative and want to maintain the status quo. Oh, goodness. I'm way behind now. Okay. Please keep asking questions. I will get to them. I promise. I am just trying to catch up here. Push on the boundaries of knowledge. Yeah, that's also a good way of framing it, is that the left are about figuring out what a more ideal society would look like and kind of pushing in that direction. And figuring out what a more ideal society looks like is kind of a philosophical endeavor. If I could just up and leave, which country would I migrate to? Everything's taken care of. I would have to move around, man. Like, I am of the opinion, like, travel was not on my radar for a very long time, and then I kind of started doing it. And the thing that I love, the best parts of travel, are the weird things that happen somewhere that couldn't happen anywhere else. So here, I'm in like Silicon Valley, Bay Area. Things that happen here that could not happen anywhere else is you see someone walking their robot wheelchair and trying to teach it like navigation around stop signs and stuff like that. Like that's a weird thing that you would like order some street food and then just like watch this happen and be like, this is not like, this is a weird thing that you could only get here. And I would want to collect as many of those as possible. Pinker has cute hair. Yes, he does. Great hair. Friendly numbers or landmark numbers? I've heard friendly numbers before. Friendly numbers are the one that people just numbers. Oh dear. I do not know these math categories. I am very sorry for that. Okay, I'm going to add these to the list under 6.9. Friendly numbers and landmark numbers. See, this is where we're at right now. Where we're at is that I've got somebody, an American rapper who might well be like a sex offender or something like that. Might be a terrible person. I don't know. Right next to friendly numbers and landmark numbers. This is the problem with making an eclectic show where I cover a bunch of different subjects. So that now I have to know things about everything. Favorite or interesting friendly numbers or landmark numbers. I'm very sorry that I am but a mathlet. I'm not well versed in like real pure mathematics. I just know enough that I can do engineering. Pain is pleasure, pleasure is pain. Have I read any of Ted Kaczynski's books? No, I've read snippets. Interesting anti-transhumanism arguments. Yeah, like the Kaczynski stuff. He was obviously unhinged, but he does have a way of framing things that is, at the very least, an interesting meme to consider while you're an interesting point of view. Say, devil's advocate. So playing devil's advocate just on its own is annoying and stupid. But there are frequently people who have strong opinions that I think that they ought to be more reserved about. Comes with the territory in philosophy. You know, you learn that your whole freaking structure of thought is built on a pile or on a mound of sand. And so your uncertainty about all of these things goes up, and you start to become incredulous that anybody could have a strong opinion about what like, how you is this right or wrong? Oh, well, it's right. How can you possibly be so absolutely sure of that when there's all this uncertainty? As an example. So I often find myself, this is a thing that philosophers do a lot, and I appreciate it for what it is. The straight up Socratic method is kind of annoying, but at the very least, I like to say, look, you've got this position. That's great. I'm glad that you have an opinion about this. But have you considered like this aspect of it? Have you considered this aspect of it? And I try to like give people something to chew on if maybe they haven't chewed on it before. If they've already heard it before and they're like, no, I dismiss it. I like my knowledge on this subject totally encompasses yours. And I still have a firm opinion. I'm like, fair enough. Maybe I should read more. Thunk episode on the just world fallacy. I did do a Thunk episode on the just world fallacy. It's an earlier one. I think it's in like the 70s or 80s or something. It was in a period where I was flirting with being a little more political with Thunk, and it did not. It's not great. Oh my God, so behind. Okay. Favorite YouTuber to make a crossover episode with? Oh, I don't know that my ego could brook that. I would love to chat with ContraPoints or Philosophy Tube. Any of the bread tubers would be a laugh, right? I think that me and H Bomber Guy could do a lot. Let's see. Well, I would love to do a crossover episode with This Old Tony. Oh God, that's the dream. This Old Tony is my man. That guy has. It's like he's an amateur machinist, and I say he's an amateur machinist, and he does all of these videos about like lathes and welding and all of this other crap. But his like cinematic just vision, just like what he puts together, like the visual gags that he does and the timing and the editing and like how everything is framed in the shot and all of this other stuff, it's masterful. He is a cinematographer trapped in a machinist's body. And it's just I would love to like learn some stuff from him, like have him teach me how to, I don't know, have him teach me how to stick weld. I don't know how to stick weld. TIG weld, I mean. His blicky does contain the stiffy, I guess. John Rawls, Veil of Ignorance. Yes. Somebody asked about John Rawls earlier. Yeah, so there was essentially the idea is that he is assuming a liberal standpoint to begin with and deriving liberal society from it. And that's kind of catechon hypothesis. Fermi paradox, the universe is a simulation. Use too much computational power might be removed from the simulation. If the universe is a simulation, then you've solved the Fermi paradox already, right? There isn't anybody out there because we're the subject of the simulation or something like that. I think that that's probably unnecessary. Too much computational power. Like I mean, all things are possible, right? But who is your favorite philosopher? Oh, God. Oh, favorite philosopher. I am a basic bitch. I've got to say Hume. Like, he was, a racist and a misogynist and all of these other things. He was maybe not the best person, but his writing is tongue-in-cheek and and cheerful in many cases, or at the very least, like authentic to the human condition. And I just remembered I forgot to shave before this. I'm not at my best right now. And he's just got like a sense of humor about the whole thing. And it's good stuff. And he's very insightful. He like the stuff that he puts together, like bundle theory and all these other things. It's just like, it's very masterful. Hold on, I'm checking. Okay. People are in voice chat on the THUNK Discord channel right now. I feel I don't know. I'm missing out. I've got some FOMO. What degree do you hold? I hold a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from University of California, San Diego, Revelle College. Go Revelle. Okay, just fun story time. So I applied to a bunch of colleges and got into like a couple, and UCSD was one of them, and it was close to home, and so obviously I went there. And when I went there for orientation, it's like a auditorium full of probably 300 people of like parents and their kids on the first day of college and all this other stuff. And they had a student speaker get up there at the end of this like orientation where they're talking about like UCSD and how it's broken into colleges, all this other stuff. And the student speaker says, "Okay, guys, so it's Spirit Week. And so you'll see a bunch of people out there like with face paint on and all this other stuff. Also, if you see people throwing this around, this is the trident symbol. This is like go Tridents, because the UCSD mascot is King Triton. So like if you see people throwing this around, then it's just a school spirit thing." And I bust out laughing because, if you're unaware, this is known as the shocker. It is a sexual. It is a thing that people do to people who have vaginas, and so I bust out laughing because I thought he was real ballsy to get up in front of kids and parents and all this other stuff and like throw up the shocker like it was a thing. And I came to understand that no, actually, that's just their thing. That's just like they will at UCSD basketball games, the cheerleaders, when somebody is making a free throw, will just like unironically like throw up the tridents, and it's wild. And I was the only one in the whole room who laughed. I was the only one who got it, and I felt really self-conscious about it. So, Mike Rugnetta, of course, Mike Rugnetta. He's not really on YouTube anymore. Like he's got his own thing. Plug, if you're into role-playing podcasts, Fun City, Mike Rugnetta is doing a podcast that's called Fun City, where they did Shadowrun, and currently they're doing something called Stillfleet, and he is the DM. And of course, because it's Mike Rugnetta, he's just incredible. It's a masterful sort of role-playing podcast. Hi, Zykos. Welcome back. Proliferation. I've recently gotten some like TMJ type stuff, so I'm having a little bit of trouble talking here. Proliferation of wacky ideologies among the teens of the internet by way of memes. Polcom Ball. I think that teens have always had wacky ideologies. I certainly thought some weird shit when I was a teenager. They certainly have more exposure to richer veins of memes, I think. So there might be something to that. Yeah, I don't know. The world continues to coalesce around certain sinks, ideological sinks. And I think that that will probably continue. How bad is our level of inequality, in your opinion? Second Gilded Age. Amount of inequality. Like the inequality between the northern and southern hemisphere of the Earth is pretty striking. Like I am worried about stuff like I want to get a new pair of jeans because these ones are like old and stretched out and stuff, and I have to, and that is the like one of the most pressing things on my agenda. And there are a lot of people who are struggling to keep their kids fed. Like obviously that is not an equal world. And I think that everybody sort of, I think that everybody sort of acknowledges that this is like everybody who's watching this right now has access to technology that a lot of the Earth does not have access to. And I think that we all sort of dwell in this constant, like, uncomfortable acceptance that that what we are, that, you know, we purchase things and improve the quality of our life in ways that are incongruent with the amount of inequality that exists. And we all just sort of acknowledge that and keep on doing it because we're humans. That is a thing. Like, I want people to be equal, to have, equal opportunity, and to kind of, I don't want anybody to be suffering because they don't have access to the resources that I do. But also I want a new pair of jeans, and this is the human condition, and we all kind of struggle through it. Some of us are more pained by the moral quandaries of that than others. That is also like an important thing. I have been enchanted with the idea. I've had a bunch of people tell me that it's an awful idea, but I have been enchanted with the idea that humans have like the hedonic treadmill, right? So we reach a certain status, and regardless of how like objectively good or bad that way of being is, we adjust to it. Our psychology expands to fill the space that is available to it. And if every day is just torment, or if every day is torture, if you live in a like Nazi POW camp, then your psychology expands to fill that space. And a day where the guard forgot to beat you is like, it's a great day. You feel good. And I've been enchanted with the idea of harnessing that, of yoking that to, and focusing instead of on the metrics that we have access to, like income inequality, countries' GDP, or infant mortality rate, or even access to healthcare and things like that. The things that we can measure are not the things that we are interested in. The things that we can measure are correlates with mental well-being or emotional well-being or flourishing, human flourishing. And they correlate, okay, like certainly a person whose kid has just died would feel awful. But the thing that we're actually interested in is subjective. It is something that is inaccessible to us. And I wonder how much work has been done to improve subjective well-being, just totally divorced from those other things. Like the way that you think about the world changes how you experience it. And if we could, if we invested more, like there was a class at Yale, there was a university course that was about happiness. It was about how to lead a happy or satisfying life. And it was unique. It was new. And the person who was teaching it was like, nobody's doing this. But this is like this is the whole point. This is the thing that we're actually interested in. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of room there. I think that there's a lot of untapped potential in that area, or at least from what I've read. Maybe a lot of people have gotten into it, and I'm just ignorant of that. Sorry, long-winded response. This'll Tony has the editing skills of all the other YouTubers I'm subscribed to combined, and then some. Absolutely, he's just masterful. Being human in cities. And Fuentes. Hume fans represent. Everybody's a Hume fan. I can't think of anybody who is into philosophy who would read Hume and be like, this is garbage. I haven't read Straw Dogs yet. Let me put that on the list. I have heard, I think that Very Bad Wizards did an episode on Straw Dogs, the film. Something about like being a manly man and something, and cuckoldry or something like that. Causality doesn't exist. I don't think that you could safely assert that Hume thought that causality doesn't exist. I think that the furthest he would go would be to say that causality might exist, but all we see is correlation. All we have access to is correlation. Josh is going OSHA now. Judea Pearl found a way to mathematically formalize causality. Dude, okay, so general proviso about less wrong. There are a lot of very smart people there. They figure a lot of things out, but I think that in general they have a tendency to they lean towards the idea that philosophy is garbage. A lot of Yudkowsky's original texts are kind of like philosophers like debate about this and how stupid is that. Somebody mentioned earlier that he was talking about how free will doesn't exist and anybody who thinks it does is stupid. And the thing is that like philosophy is about, it's not about like find the answer and then just freaking move in that direction. It's about like feeling out the nuances of the idea and looking for cracks and looking for problems that we have. And I sincerely doubt that mathematically formalizing causality debunks any of Hume's arguments. I don't think that anybody in the know would say that, oh yeah, causality is totally solved. We figured it out. And I think that in general, if somebody claims to have solved the philosophical problems, they are misguided or overstating the case. I think is the most charitable way of saying it. They overstate what they have discovered and how rigorous and irrefutable it is. And I don't think that mathematics is like you see a thing and then another thing happens and like you don't physically see causality. Causality doesn't emit photons. So I think that it still stacks up a bit. Someone from UCI. I used to play in the UCI pep band. Highly recommended. Zot. You be fan of the Lobster King. I am not a fan of Jordan Peterson, if that is who you're referring to. Reset the counter. I think that his ideas are useful for a certain kind of person. I think that a lot of people have found value in those ideas, which is good. He separates the two gestures. I don't think so, man. Whoever came up with that knew exactly what they were doing. If you could bootstrap paradox something. I've never heard bootstrap paradox as a verb. Hold on, let me refresh. Yeah. So like, I've also heard this described as a gin. This is a closed time-like curve. It's a thing that goes back in time and becomes itself. So generally, bootstrap paradox is like a bit of technology or something comes into existence, and the reason for its existence, it just appears because it was sent back from the future. And the reason that they were able to send it back from the future is because it was sent back already. And so like sky's the limit, right? I could say bootstrap paradox and entropy reverser. Or bootstrap paradox, it's basically like, what would you wish for sort of a thing, right? Yeah. So, use your imagination. A ring of 3 wishes, or a ring of wishes, or something. Do you have any UX expectations about AR VR? Yeah. So, the AR VR thing. I don't know if you saw my episode on the. Oh God, I just forgot the term for it. It's not virtual reality. It's not augmented reality. It's not reality. Oh God. This is very embarrassing. I made a whole episode about it. I can't remember. THUNK. Augmented reality. No. I did do one on Google Glass on augmented reality, but the idea is that that it's just a spectrum. I don't have to remember the name for it. I can just tell you what the hell it was. The idea is that there's just a spectrum of digital overlay of your experience, or digital contribution to your subjective experience. So the idea that like augmented reality and virtual reality kind of exist on the same spectrum, of which like just having a phone and having the phone be part of your consciousness, like you're kind of listening for a notification sound or something like that. That's kind of just all part of the same thing. But the lack of access to the metaverse, like if you accept that theory, then yes, anybody who doesn't have a phone now is already excluded from the metaverse, or who doesn't have internet access now is sort of excluded from that. UX expectations. There are some things that I'm working on at work right now that I'm not allowed to talk about. There are people who are making headway in that. Nobody has really cracked it yet, I think. David Peirce. Wireheading, genetic engineering. Yeah, super happy. Yeah, the wireheading argument is, I think it's defeated by Nozick's experience machine. Like, I think that it's self-evident for most people that if you could have the experience of something but not actually do it, then that's worse. That there is virtue or value to be had in actively pursuing or actually doing things. And overcoming the hedonic treadmill is not necessarily a goal. Like, the hedonic treadmill is a fact. It is part of how we are. And it's not good or bad. I think that we can use it. For example, if you could readjust someone's hedonic set point somewhere else, regardless of their situation, such that they could still do things but enjoy it more. I think that might be a nice like middle ground. Donald Hoffman. I've heard of Hoffman. Which one? I might be thinking of Hofstadter. One sec. Is it UCI? Yeah, CogPsych. Okay. Oh, I might have. Yeah. So this stuff. One sec. Let me get a book and see if it's by him, because I've read this. Oh, sorry. It must be in another bookcase, but it's called The Visual Brain in Action. And no, it's by Milner. My mistake. Anyway. Yeah, I mean all of the stuff about the attention and how perception is constructed and all that other stuff. I'm super into that. Do you think consciousness is possible without sensory perception? Oh. Scrolled off the screen there. Do you think consciousness is possible without sensory perception? I don't see why not. You could just be. It depends on what you mean by sensory perception. I think that is probably a semantic argument. Do you think consciousness can exist without emotion? I don't see why not. Well, again, it sort of depends on how you define emotion, but I think I don't see any intrinsic reason that you can have those be separable. How evolution hid the truth from our eyes. It sounds very Kantian, noumenal, that sort of stuff, noumenal phenomenal. And I'm super into it. Like all of these ideas that perception is largely a cognitive process is fascinating. And it informs a lot of like my personal philosophy and why I'm so skeptical about a lot of claims of objective reality and stuff. How much of your life do you prefer to automate? I automate myself as much as I get things into my muscle memory. Like making coffee is not a conscious act anymore. Like I have no idea. Like I go into a fugue state and wake up and I have coffee, I could do a better job at being very deliberate about what things I choose to invest like energy in versus putting them on autopilot. Like I think that I could reduce a lot of my cognitive load by like turning off notifications for certain things on my phone or being very granular with what notifications I allow. It's a work in progress. Why do you think technology is accelerating? Well, because technology is you take two things and you combine them and you have a new thing. And the more things there are, the more that process works. There's more combinations. It's combinatorial, I would say. Bronze swords to iron swords, then get from iron swords to fighter jets. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think I buy the stochastic theory of scientific discovery. I buy that the primary process by which we make forward progress or develop new ideas is by combining things that already exist. So the more things that exist, the more ideas you can get. The Reality Bubble is a pop sci book I recently read. The Reality Bubble. Is this a like fragmentation of the internet into or like you have a news bubble, that sort of a thing? Stop experiencing fear and anxiety if you have your amygdala removed, and you will stop being able to make decisions. Important feature of the amygdala is that it is intrinsic to resolve the paradox of choice or Burns ass type situations. People who don't have any amygdala cannot make any decisions. They just kind of sit there and be like, well, I could do this or I could do this. And there isn't anything that recommends one course of action to the other. So I what should I do? And they just do that forever. Lovelock's Gaia theory. I have heard the Gaia theory recently. Were you the one that brought it up in the THUNK comments? Oh, yeah. So this has nothing to do with the fictional work of the same name. Components in a social ecosystem. Yeah. Somebody brought this up recently and was like, it might have been an Aeon article, but it was about the Gaia theory and how the person who thought that it was bunk to begin with, and then they started thinking about it, and then they found some way to liberate a theory that makes sense from it. And I lean very like social or communitarian or however you want to phrase it. Like I tend to think of humans not as I tend to analyze things without individuals being the basis of the framework of thought. But the Gaia theory is still pretty wild for me. I think it would be for anyone. Choose to keep feeling sadness, fear, and anxiety. Yeah. Like we don't just watch like art that makes us happy. We don't consume art or media that makes us happy. We consume art and media that makes us feel things. Painless society would really be bad. A painless society, like pain serves a useful purpose. Like people who can't feel pain often suffer greater consequences. You know, it depends on what you mean by painless. Like alleviating non-desired suffering would probably be a good idea. Cognitive apprenticeship. Mental steps to deal with foreign concepts in conversation, reading philosophy. Is cognitive apprenticeship an established term? I've never heard that before. Cognitive apprenticeship. Let's do it live, as they say. Cognitive apprenticeship is a theory that emphasizes the importance of the process in which a master of a skill teaches that skill to an apprentice. Okay. So like a sort of mentorship. Mental steps to deal with foreign concepts in conversation and reading philosophy. I think that if you one of the things that I really prioritized when I was doing THUNK is to not take 2 steps or to not jump 2 steps, to like kind of explain every step in the chain of reasoning from the beginning to the end, to not assume that my audience was going to follow if I just like jumped off into somewhere else. I think I find that to be very important for pedagogy. I have had a lot of college professors who were very brilliant in their field, for whom like tensor arrays and signals and systems, and why you need to care about signals and systems, all these other things are like trivial because they work with them their entire life. And they would be like, they write a thing on the top left corner of the board and write another thing beneath it that bore no relationship as far as I could say. It'd just be like, okay, well, I'll catch up with you at the end, I guess. And I think that an important part, and like maybe one of the reasons that THUNK works is because I am experiencing these concepts for the first time in many cases, along with you guys. So I get to just jump to the end. Like I am showing you how I'm processing it. So maybe the best route to cognitive apprenticeship is to learn it with someone. Maybe with having more context, you have like more things that you can draw on and just like point out like interesting connections to the ideas that you're exploring. Playing Doom on a pregnancy test. Anything that you can install Linux on, you can play Doom on. So that's most computational platforms that are Turing complete. What about using Doom as a pregnancy test? If somebody stops playing in the middle and starts crying, and it's just like, I just can't handle it. It's so emotional. The emotional resonance of the story of Doom is just too much for me right now. Then maybe pregnant, maybe. Why do you think the elderly are generally more wise? More time to learn stuff. Again, calling on the cultural evolution theory, if the only thing that we have going for us, if the primary component of our knowledge is stuff that we assimilate from culture, then the longer you can like have that diffusion gradient, the longer you have that stuff diffuse into you, then the longer, the more of it you can absorb. And the only old people who are insufferable are the ones who have stopped learning stuff, you know? Do you think society would be significantly better off if everyone lived to age 300 or so? I mean, I would certainly like that. Again, like there's the problem of people who just stop, who have, I know everything that I need to know and I know what I like, and that's the end of it. There's an explore-exploit relationship that is described in Algorithms to Live By, which is interesting in that regard. Wireheading is evolutionarily maladaptive. Yeah, if everything has the same emotional valence, then there's no reason to do anything over anything else. Gradients of bliss could replace the functionality of physical pain. Yeah. Hello, love your vids. Thank you, Joaquin. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Curse of knowledge is real. Yeah. Yeah. My only curse is you, Tony to Thanos. Yeah. I am burdened with glorious purpose. Is that the line? God, I can't even remember it right now. I am burdened. Glorious purpose. Yes. Well, right now I am burdened with a full bladder, so I'm going to take care of that. And I've reached the end of the dialogue. If you guys want to submit some more questions, I promise I will get to them when I get back. We're sitting at about an hour 50. I didn't put an ending on this, so I think that I'll take a bathroom break and eat some Brussels sprouts and then come back. And if there are any more questions, then I'll answer them. And if not, then we can just call it and I can get started editing the script for the next episode. So, moo string. I'll be right back. Oh. How many episodes do you have on the pipeline? I have I have a constant stream of like ideas that I have for scripts, and they all exist in sort of a state of like proto script. They're all like, I don't know. At the very least, I have an outline or like a set of points that I want to talk about, and so like I've got a large number of those. I'm sorry if anybody has misophonia. I hope that you can't hear the chewing. It says that the gain is turned way down, so hopefully it's not gross. But I pulled these out right at noon, so I kind of have to like get into them at some point. My frail human body requires sustenance. Raz, I didn't see you come in. How's the live stream going? Any new ideas come out of it, like Discord from the last one? Misophonia. Misophonia is being more grossed out by mouth noises than most people. It's a thing that I actually suffer from. Like if somebody's chewing into a microphone or something like that, and I've got headphones on, I lose my goddamn mind. Like it's almost a like grab them and throw them across the room sort of thing for me. So I'm hoping that it's not too gross for you guys, but I planned poorly, I guess, and so here we are. This hopefully what I'm here for, man. Have I done an episode about moo? Okay. Thanks, String. I appreciate it. I do not want to inflict this on anyone, you know? Kaigan Jin. Good luck on your history finals. I hope that you remember all of the things and that you have interesting things to say about all of them. Any new ideas come out of it? Well, I've got a reading list going, so that's something. I've been doing okay at like incorporating stuff into the list. People ask me, "Have you read this, that, the other?" And I've been accumulating those. Nothing that's as good of an idea as Discord was, though. Discord was the best idea out of that last live stream for sure. Remove the world's value system without replacing it with another, you end up in the nihilism we live in today. I mean, everybody has a value system, right? Like there isn't such a thing as just existing without a value system, even if that value system is egoism. You know, I don't know about uh, I don't know about nihilism. Like nihilism would claim that like nothing matters by some measure, and I think that it's probably not viable for like a long term. I think that you might be able to be nihilist in like very small moments when you're deep in uh, philosophical reflection, but I don't think that it works as a long term thing. Eventually, you have to decide that you're going to do something, right? Oh, speaking of Nietzsche, um, there's a fun thing that I heard on the Very Bad Wizards podcast, which is that all undergrad or all philosophy students, when they read Nietzsche, they decide that they want to write like Nietzsche, but nobody can write like Nietzsche except Nietzsche. And so you end up with a bunch of people who just like do these polemic rants that don't actually say anything sensical. Very, I think that Ayn Rand, if she had actually read any Nietzsche, would have been inspired to be how she was, but that's not how it panned out. I don't think that she read any of it. Writing like Nietzsche is actually he's got a way about him. He's got a style about him, and the thing is that it's backed up by very clearly a razor sharp insight. And you can be polemic if you're right. You know, you can get away with it sometimes. But would you consider an episode talking about how technology augments our grasp of the noumena? Huh. Yeah, I've definitely toyed around with doing an episode on scientific instrumentalism, which is sort of it's in that domain. The question being is like the noumena phenomena distinction is insurmountable as far as anybody who talks about noumena, like it's just a categorical split, and there isn't any surmounting it really. I think that it would be interesting to get into, like, I did the episode on science, which was motivated by a discussion I was having with someone who was like sort of a pragmatist who was like asserting that like it's all heuristics. There isn't any realism to be had. And I was like, well, what do you say to someone? What do you say to someone who has a clearly absurd belief? That you know is not going to work out for them, but you have not yet seen how it's going to work, right? Sort of a thing. It's like pragmatism is very based in this evolutionary mindset where things either work or don't work, but the whole idea of being able to like predict what is going to work ahead of time, that sort of invests itself in some form of realism. So that was sort of where that episode came from. It's just like you have to be able to say that some things are real and some things aren't, or else you lose the ability to make normative statements or predictions and things like that. And so for the noumenal phenomenal distinction in scientific apparatus, like the oscilloscope says this, or the meter or whatever it is might say a thing, but that doesn't mean that you have bridged the gap to the noumenal by looking at it. Like all you can see, the only phenomena that you have access to, or so that the meter says this, that, or the other. You have to add something else have access to, or so that the meter says this, that, or the other. You have to add something else in order to make that work. Fiddling while Rome burns has experienced the phenomenon that I was referring to. Stop trying to write like Nietzsche is good advice for most people. For most people. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed some stuff. Oof. Chocolate cake in one sitting. If nothing truly matters in the long run, you can eat a chocolate cake in one sitting, but you have to care about it. More episodes on morality, ethics. I'm totally into it. Morality and ethics are very easy to talk about because I can just describe like what the theories are without necessarily having to come down on one side or another of these things. And that's just because that's my attitude towards a lot of it. It's just like this is an interesting way of analyzing this landscape. Good idea to have some sort of eugenic program to raise the average IQ. Like I was saying before, I think that like cultural knowledge is here. IQ is like this little stripe on the top. I don't think that like increasing IQ is going to like the like IQ for disability, like people who are incapable of reading because of like learning deficits or things like that. I think is a worthy cause to try and fix or combat. Just because those people suffer negative life outcomes. You could also, and that is not to also render society such that those people can have satisfactory life outcomes without needing to be able to read or whatever. I think that there's a mentality that if individual intelligence got better, if the average individual's intelligence got better, then that would cascade into these massive like utopian effects for society. And I think that that's fundamentally misguided. I think that like individual intelligence is what gets explorers dead in the wilderness in like some territory that they have never that they are exploring for the first time, while the natives are looking at them like they're idiots. Individual intelligence is largely just the tiniest variance on top of this massive body of practical know-how that is cultural knowledge. So, we can talk about IQ, we could talk about like raising it or whatever, but I think that the more important endeavor is to pursue systems that allow us to increase cultural knowledge, like science and education, and increasing the landscape of available ideas. Like those are the things to focus on if you want to improve society quickly, I think. I only read Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Reading young Nietzsche is a trip. Young Nietzsche is bright and bushy-tailed in a way that old Nietzsche is not. Beyond Good and Evil is interesting. It makes oblique references back to previous works. I'm pretty sure he did a video about the trouble with eugenics. I don't know that I have explicitly talked about eugenics. I should have at some point. The problem with eugenics is that you have to, in order to move society or people in a direction, you have to decide what direction you're going to move them. And that value judgment is not necessarily, it's never objective. It's always just a thing that somebody wants. You go, Camilla, get that cake. Have I dabbled in machine learning? I've gone on like, I have done all of the like cutesy web apps that Google has thrown at the public, where you can do like the deep mind dreaming thing and stuff like that. I don't know anything about machine learning. I certainly don't. Like I have not. I can barely program like a calculator. I am not very skilled at programming. I think that my peak was a Sudoku solver that worked 95% of the time, and then there was like a 5% of puzzles that it just couldn't solve, and I never figured it out. And I redo it occasionally when I'm learning a new programming language and I really want to like get into it. I sort of build a Sudoku solver, but man, it's a neat exercise, but it is, but I am not good at it. I think if I could do things over, I might have taken a programming major in college, maybe done that instead. Eugenics also don't work frequently. It's just an excuse to discriminate against people who are not good at IQ tests. Old biased worldviews, cognitive performances aren't directly linked to a handful of genes, and again, can be heavily influenced by environment. Of course. I do think that cognitive deficit is like it's a real phenomenon. Like there are people who do not have the same like substrate that the rest of us have to assimilate culture, and that's very important. Do you plan on diving into the philosophy of mind? I think that I'm kind of in there already. Like I'm constantly learning new philosophy of mind stuff. It's definitely an area of interest. You didn't do one talking about all the issues and troubles that we've had trying to raise cows to give more milk? No, I think that might have been Rebecca Watson. I think that might have been her. My videos that are explicitly refuting like kind of like fascist or alt-right or other or racism or things like that are all cartoonish. They are not good. YouTube is not your main job. Absolutely not. I do not make enough money doing this to live where I live. I'm in Silicon Valley, where the rent on this, a 1-bedroom apartment that has old wiring and not enough light. The rent here is $3,000 a month, $3,000 US every month. For the cost of real estate around here is such that the cost of this 1-bedroom apartment, I could get a 7-bedroom mansion in Ohio with a swimming pool and like a gravel driveway and the whole 9 yards. Like it is just absurd. What sort of algorithm do I use to make a Sudoku solver? It's an elimination algorithm with so you know it's the way that a human would do Sudoku, where you look at the thing and there's an 8 in this column, so that means that there can't be an 8 in this row or any of those other ones, and you strike those numbers out, and as you strike them out, there will be cells that have no other possibilities, in which case you can fill those in and then like do that recursively, coupled with a guess and check algorithm where which is where I think that the 5% that it can't solve kind of it falls down on, where it just like plugs in a thing, sees if a solution is viable, and if it's not, then it like terminates that and strikes it from the cell, and then tries to do another elimination round. That is the algorithm that I developed. It is the most obvious and dumbest thing that I thought of that could work. That I went with. Biggest things that you have learned while researching stuff for THUNK. Have you changed your mind, view, perspective, and live your day-to-day life? So the things that I have discovered while doing THUNK that like I carry around in my head and just like rub up against whatever I'm encountering. The cultural evolution theory thing, stochastic theory of scientific discovery. There's a lot of philosophical, like recently, like I've been saying philosophical pragmatism, sort of if it works, then it's true for some value of true. It's difficult because these are all things that I like from where I am right now. It feels like, well, yeah, I've always carried these around with me, but the engineer syndrome thing, like that's a thing that I wring my hands about a lot. Yeah, just I think stuff like that. Any thoughts about starting a YouTube channel? Been thinking about making videos about philosophical perspective on performative aesthetics, especially musical practices. But I am quite unsure if my skill set will suffice. My first video was not marvelous, and it kind of decayed from there, I think. Starting a YouTube channel is much harder now than it was, just because it is much more saturated and the algorithm is much harsher than it used to be. So don't do it because you want an audience. Do it because you enjoy making videos, and make videos about things that you enjoy. Hopefully, as with THUNK, you develop an audience of people who like listening to the things that you like to talk about. The Valley absolutely don't fuck around. Yeah. It is. I've heard recently that it is because of very low standards for who qualifies for credit. So any Yahoo can get any size loan for purchasing property that they want, and then rent that property out for some absurd value and use that to pay off the loan. And that everybody's just doing that. And I am not like a real estate or economic expert, so I don't know the truth of that. But it sure sucks to hand $3,000 to a stranger every month, and for the honor of living in a box with not enough light that I can't knock out the walls for, Any commentary on our climate crisis? It's bad. We should stop it. We should do something else. Build nukes. More nukes. Nukes everywhere. Pebble bed reactors. Do some stuff. Oh. Raz, you're gonna build a Sudoku solver in like 30 minutes that is far and above anything that I ever achieved. People who know actual coding. Have you joined a union already? And if not, why? Because I am not protected. Like, if I were to join a union, I would be the only union member in my 20-person company, and like there are no protections, especially in Palo Alto, especially in Silicon Valley, for like, I'm not going to get any collective bargaining or anything like that. If I was to join a union, I would just get fired. And then like stuff really goes bad because my wife, who is studying to be a doctor but does not get paid doctor money, see the THUNK episode on residency for more about that. You know, our life. If I get fired, our life plans all kind of come unraveled, and we've got to like scramble and figure something else out. So, welcome to the United States. This is what employment is like here. Would you join the Borg? I would be interested. It is like there's a question about what the specific, like with all questions like this, the specifics really matter a lot. So do I cease to be? Because even when Picard was assimilated, he still had an identity afterward. So can I switch it on and off if I want to? Is it a one-way thing? Do I still have a body? Having a body is very important to me. That's why I keep on eating on my live stream like a jackass. Thoughts on nuclear power? It is much safer than people give it credit for. And like, I get it. It's because it's scary. Like nuclear power, unlike burning stuff, which we can like process on a very like basic level. It's just like, I understand burning stuff to a greater or lesser extent. It heats up, it's fine. Nuclear power is unlike anything that we experience in our everyday life. Like you burn something on the stove, you get it. Nuclear power will, ionize the particles in your DNA and just give you cancer because you're looking at a pretty blue light. And that's scary. It's like magic. So people are scared of it. And that's understandable. But climate change is coming. And like the economy, trusting in markets or the economy to fix it for us is not going to work. It is going to happen to us we're going to pass the threshold where we are doomed before we see the immediate effects of being doomed. And that is not a thing that humans are good at figuring out like real time. We can plan for it, which is what we kind of have to do. But like massive regulation, government intervention, like social campaigns, and building lots of nukes. It's kind of the only answers that I have right now. How much time do you put into your research and shaping your message? I put a lot of time into research, especially for this most recent episode. Like I have been tootling on the same script for like THUNK has taken a little hiatus, and it's been great. It's been very rejuvenating. I feel better than I did when I left off. But I've been researching this topic and I can't find. I might have just struck a keyword that I can kind of get access to some academic literature, but it is unfortunately I have stumbled into the the problem of having had a novel idea maybe. So so I'm struggling with that. And I've been working a long time to try and frame it in some way that is not overstating the case, You work on engineering. How do you balance the philosophy with the STEM work? The STEM work is very, it's very kind of like a reflex at this point. Like I look at stuff and I just see like, well, that's a one-way snap, and that's the wall thickness is too big, and there's sink there, and other stuff. So in that sense, STEM is something that I do, and it is great for. It's a different kind of thing. It's a more a closed-ended problem where there is like an answer or set of answers that are kind of more or less optimal for the initial conditions that you're given, and then you can just roll with it. Whereas philosophy is always much more open-ended, and you can like grind on a question over and over and over again and come up with new things every time you grind on it. So it's like it's different kinds of thinking about stuff. Have you done any functional programming? When you say functional, do you mean programs that are based on functions, or do you mean programming that works? Because the answer is no to both of those. No, I've done like I do C. Like C is how I think about programming. It was the first language that I learned. So that's a lot of like function calls and stuff like that. Yeah, sorry, string. It's just rough. It's rough. Some residencies aren't that draining. Have you thought about psych? A lot of abstract thinking. Some residencies aren't that draining is true, but they are also you could be hyper competitive for like dermatology is a pretty cushy gig because it's like 8 to 5 and you get paid a lot. And if you go into but you have to be a gunner to go into derm. Like people who go into dermatology are some of the most competitive med school residents. And my wife just didn't want to do that. And I don't blame her because she was already like, she has a PhD in neuroscience. She's got like so many qualifications for like so many different positions, and they're paying her like the salary that I was making as an engineer when I first got out of undergrad. Like it's absurd. Have you thought about psych? A lot of abstract thinking. She's doing pediatric neurology. Which are your obligatory sci-fi books or franchises? Obligatory. Culture series. Foundation series. Dune. Just you don't have to read the other Dune books. You can just read Dune. Dune is fine. Hitchhiker's Guide. Silver Ships was pretty good. Silver Ships was fun. Most recently, oh God, I'm blanking on the name right now, but it's the one with the octopuses. Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky is I would say that is mandatory reading. He's also written some other books I haven't read yet, but that's very good. So Raz is making a joke about few less nukes in the warhead sense. There was actually a proposal at the beginning of like fusion weapons, like H-bombs, where you put a giant goddamn fusion bomb under a column of stone and you set it off and it just blows up and raises the column. And then you harness the potential energy as it like drops back down. And that's how you get fusion power nuclear reactor without all of that garbage with like confining plasma and stuff. So I don't know, maybe more of those nukes too. Are you experienced in systems engineering? I am not experienced in systems engineering, except in the like broad, you know, I forget what the actual definition of systems engineering is. I mean, it sounds like it's just a buzzword for engineering. That's how I read it anyway. Systems thinking principles as an organizing body of knowledge. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of just engineering, you know? Like when I say engineer, yeah. So it you know, I am thinking about the life cycle of the product and all this other stuff. I'm a consultant, so I have to kind of always frame the engineering that I'm doing in a larger context of making the client happy. So, see ya, Joaquin. David Burns. Oh, what did Burn do? Sci-fi. Sorry, guys. I am blanking on what did David Byrne? David Brin. There we go. Sorry, I know that this is the most thrilling live stream that you have ever seen. David Brin. There we go. Hugo Award winner. What did he do? What was the book? Uplift Stories. Is he the one who literally wrote? Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Uplift series. The curse of thinking at the object level. Anyway, sorry. Just had to. Speaking of Uplift series, there's a series of videos. Isaac Arthur, who has a series of videos about like kind of future tech and what it might be to he has a series of videos that are about like getting humans off of Earth and into space. Are invertebrates moral patients? Do insects suffer in a way that obligates us to care about their well-being? I think probably to some extent. Like any of that subjective experience of suffering of creatures that are not human, who can't communicate with us in meaningful ways. It's always suspect. I think that probably like if you had an option to torture a bunch of mosquitoes to death, you probably shouldn't do that, despite the fact that I hate mosquitoes. Killing them without suffering would be preferable. So that implies some sort of like moral obligation to them, I think. Have you read the entire Silver Ship series? No, not yet. Just the first one so far. I love what you do. Do you know Less Wrong Forum or George Hotz? I don't know George Hotz, but I do know Less Wrong all too well. When does the striptease portion start? Did I miss it? It started earlier. Now that you say that, I did undo a button here. I'll do it again for you. Welcome, Gemsbach. Do you have any ideas how to solve the societal problem? Oh God. I undo a shirt button and then I have to answer a problem. I have to answer how to solve a societal problem. Great. Value versus price. Neurosci PhD is working as a postdoc on increasing human lifespan. Good for you. Salary is around 50K. Yep. That sounds about right. Yeah. Value and price. The primary argument for capitalism and like markets is that they are very good at distributing resources where they're needed. But I think that argument, I think that falls apart in the face of exactly what you mentioned there, like crypto and Bitcoin, because these are things that have they have no intrinsic value. There is no intrinsic value to a Bitcoin. And you can't, and it's not like a fiat currency thing where there's no intrinsic value to any money, of course. And yet people are like, I still can't get a video card, you know? Like I was very excited about the GTX 3000 series video cards from NVIDIA, and I haven't been able to get one for a year because whenever they come into stock anywhere, people buy them and use them to make crypto, to mine crypto. And it is not, it's not a valuable resource to have mined crypto. Mining crypto does not add anything to the world. Yet the people who do that have increased power to obtain things of value, and that is that it falls apart. Like there isn't any defense for it anymore. And I think that that worries me a lot. I think that the whole, like as things drift towards crypto, that discrepancy is going to become more and more apparent. We've also got the GameStop squeeze and all of this other stuff. I wonder at what the future where people stop believing in the market as a valid measure of value, like where that goes. I don't know where that goes. I happen to be, I was saying earlier that I'm in Silicon Valley, and I can't exist here without pulling in a substantial income. I give most of it to my landlord, but it is still like a large transfer of these of currency, and what does this whole thing look like when like it's all just imaginary numbers and everybody knows it? Like we don't even pretend anymore. I don't know. I do think that you deserve more than 50K a year for trying to extend people's lives. I'll say it. Yeah, coding with pure functions only. Yeah. I mean, C can be a functional programming language. The exams don't solve themselves. Oh, if you were watching this instead of doing your exam, you should probably do that. Built-in anti-mining thing, and I still can't buy it. Yeah, it is. They are like NVIDIA is deliberately crippling their cards and what they can do just so that they can get them into the hands of people who are not Bitcoin miners. But it's not enough because the demand for Bitcoin is infinite, right? Like, so long as Bitcoin continues to have like some value to people, there's no reason to not, if the value that you can get from a video card exceeds the value of like US dollars that it takes to get one, there's never a reason not to buy one. Thank you, Sergey. Maybe another economical system would be more beneficial. Just wanted to hear your opinion. I don't like, I like the there are all sorts of like hobby horse economic theories that purport to like solve the problems with capitalism and markets and like natural monopolies and things like that. But yeah, I have not heard anything yet where I'm just like, oh yeah, I want in on that. I want the US to transition to that system. I certainly like, there are certainly modifications to it that I'm in favor of. Like I think that raising the taxes on the top 1% is not, you don't need more than like $1 million. You don't need it. You can get the lifestyle that you can get for having $1 million is sufficient, and there's no reason to continue piling money on top of it. Maybe like have a 100% tax rate once you reach $5 million or $10 million or something like that. There's no reason for there to be billionaires. I think. I'm not an economist. I'm sure that there are people who are gnashing their teeth at that, but favorite medieval philosopher. Aquinas is pre-medieval, I guess. Or does he count? Thomas Aquinas was like what, 300? Oh, no. I was totally wrong. That's close enough. 1200. St. Thomas Aquinas. There. That's a thing. I don't know very many philosophers. You called me out on Gemsbach. The last time I did a live stream, asked me if I had read much theory, which is a thing that anybody who actually knew anything about philosophy, like anybody would have gotten that meme. And I did not. And it was really embarrassing. The amount of philosophy that I know, and especially being able to tie like names to ideas, is embarrassingly small. So I'm going to go with Thomas Aquinas and hope that 1200 AD qualifies as being a medieval philosopher. Yes, Camilla, this is another one of those things that I think should not be heritable. 70K that an individual's happiness derived from money plateaus. I recently saw another study that refutes that idea. Apparently they pulled from another cohort or something like that, and did some additional analysis and found that there were actually increases after $70,000 a year. For what that's worth, I haven't looked into it deeply yet, but I was sort of like, I was similarly on the train that having more than $70,000 a year does not substantially increase your life, your outcomes, but or life satisfaction rather. Yeah. Who decides? Chat disconnected. That's new. Who decides where the excess profit goes? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that democratic republic, then we can fucking hash that out. The question of whether we actually live in a democratic republic is up for grabs. Certainly in favor of some electoral reform. Putting a cap on how much money you can accumulate. Maybe that disincentivizes some people to hoard a bunch of money as politicians and not be quite so transparently corrupt. I don't know. Thoughts on the Reformation? Oh, God. Luther was a bit of a prick. He had a famous argument with Erasmus about free will and God's like omniscience, and I came down on Erasmus's side, so I think that it should have ended there. The Reformation should have been led by Erasmus. I'm gesturing with the chopsticks, like I said, anything substantive there. The book Outliers is great about this idea. Non-money ways you can luck into being rich. Yeah, totally. I think that being rich is primarily a luck-based thing. I just found your channel. Welcome. Rationalist circles. Oh, so you're in with the rats as well. Politics is a mind killer. Would like to know your view on this. I have a view on this that is most recently that I have been developing. So I think that the way that I forget who it was, but there's a social psychologist who says that cognitive psychology, that is psychology where you're looking into like an individual's brain and how it works and the like cognitive biases and things like that. Cognitive psychology is psychology with all the interesting variables set to zero. That is to say, the interesting parts of psychology are social psychology. They're interactions between people. They're how communities come to consensus and what things they tend to believe and how they interact with each other. I think that the rationalist enterprise, like the whole idea that they were dedicated to, is to perfect individual cognition, to make the individual the most accurate predictor of whatever. And because of that, or related to that, is this concept of politics being the mind killer. Because as soon as you get involved in politics, your individual processing power, your individual ability to like evaluate things objectively or whatever goes out the window. And so if the goal of your enterprise is to perfect the individual and make a single person a perfect predictor of the future, then politics would be to be avoided. But that is not how humans are. That is not how we are embedded in a society. And the idea that an individual in a vacuum could ever like figure out the perfect prediction for the future is laughable. Like an individual in a vacuum dies before they get to 5 years of age, right? So I think that the politics is the mind killer thing, and I think that this lends itself to the rationalist like political stance as well, which is usually very liberal or neoliberal. It's that like people thinking on their own. If your goal is to be a perfect individual who can see the future, then you don't want to get involved in politics. But as soon as you get two people together trying to figure stuff out, then politics becomes inevitable. It's just a fact of the world. And there's probably a healthier way of going about it. So that's what I've been thinking about recently, a fair amount. I'm trying to ask things I can be reasonably confident weren't asked before I joined these streams. There isn't a lot so far. It's like favorite philosopher and what do you think of X? Not trying to needle you. I appreciate it. With the pointy horns, it's probably very easy to needle people. Can you say something on how you understand ideas? It is essence you see in your mind, or rather word chains or something different? There's a great PBS Idea Channel episode on what are ideas and who gets to have them, for how they exist and like how they're embodied and stuff like that. I highly recommend the most recent THUNK episode, which is about Deleuze and Guattari and the rhizome. Favorite voting system. Recently, I have been made aware that I did some shilling for fairvote.org early on in THUNK as a ranked choice voting system. Ranked choice voting is great if you live in a society with a bunch of nerds. In a normal functioning society, I think that there's research that has been shown that approval voting is probably the most effective. So approval voting is like, of these candidates, who would you be okay with running things? Yes, 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 yes. And then they tally those up and it gets closer to a fair representation of stuff. It's still vulnerable to gaming because everything is, but it's better. Formal methods, verification, type systems. Pros and cons of programming. I am not a programmer, so my opinion is that of an amateur looking in from the outside. But I know that there are some people in this chat right now who are highly critical of things like or pattern languages. I think that there are some advantages to being able to reference a codified set of things and see it, well, like this prototype, but different in some way. And having a starting point is always useful, but type systems, provers, and pros and cons. So I don't know if that actually answers your question because, like I said, I'm not a coder. I just do CAD. But Luther was a bit of a prick is certainly no hot take. Yeah, I mean, if you came here for hot takes about the Reformation, I was raised Jewish, man. Like, the Reformation is just like, oh, there's the new kids. They're arguing. An individual in a vacuum dies a bit faster than 5 years. Yes, but I mean, saying it is technically correct, right? Sounds like it's an excuse to not do anything about the status quo and shut themselves about any ongoing systemic issues. Yes, that is also certainly part of it. When you're trying to feel smarter to everyone else, it is very convenient to be able to point to political gamesmanship and say, well, those people like playing political games leaves you biased, and so I refuse to partake in it. And I happen to be of a class of people who benefits from that situation. It's curious correlation there. Luther was obsessed with apparently Luther was obsessed with scatology, that is, study of poop. Used to take detailed notes on his daily duties and would literally not stop talking about his crap to his friends. I did not know that. If I was to find some sort of parallel, like God has a plan for everything, and my body and its processes are like made in God's image. So maybe there's something there. All right. I made it to the bottom. I think that I'm going to call this at 3 hours this time. I'm not going to go for the full 6. My jaw is actually starting to hurt a little bit. But I promise I will finish up any questions that are asked before 3 hours. I might be able to turn off chat at some point, so I might do that and then just like wrap it up. So if there's anything else that you want to ask, don't like slam me with like 150 questions or something like that. But if you have like a few closing things that you'd like me to talk about, I would be happy to hear them. Futarchy. I the first thing that I think of when I see the letters FUTA are from my days on 4chan back when I was young. Oh, it's by Robin Hanson. Yeah. Elected officials define measures of national well-being, prediction markets. Yeah. So I think that prediction markets are a useful policy. Go to horny jail. Yeah, fair. Hold on. Let me get this. Bonk. Robin Hanson has a lot of opinions about things. I think that using prediction markets to get to something like a reasonable policy recommendation is vulnerable to a lot of the problems that you have with direct democracy. And also, like, markets can be manipulated. And the hardest part about any prediction market, as anybody who's been on Metaculus can tell you, is figuring out how a thing actually resolves. Like, being technically right about like where the stock market will close on such and such a day is useful for accumulating like money. It's useful for that, but it doesn't tell you anything about the health of the system. It doesn't tell you anything about the quality of life of people or any of these other things. Defining the victory conditions, defining the metrics is the beginning and end of the game, right? If we could all agree, like, this is like use elected officials to just declare what metrics they're going to focus on. It's like that's the beginning and end of it. If we could do that, then we could, and like they were enacting policies that were in line with that, then we would have like figured out how to overcome political gamesmanship and all that other stuff. We're not, that's it's solving the wrong problem, right? The problem is not that people can't figure this stuff out. The problem is that we disagree about what it is that we need to do. Is there a question you want to answer that you haven't been asked yet? That is a fantastic question. I wanted to be asked that one and I didn't even know it. Let's see. I'm going to need to take a beat on that one. Give me a sec. Ask me about playing Hitman. Ask me about Hitman. And also, while you're providing me a question about Hitman, I would like to ask you guys a question. Anybody who's happens to be on right now. It looks like there's 26 of you. Jesus. What do you think? Like, it is a pretty YouTube-y thing to live stream playing video games. I've played video games with some of you before. Would you be interested in watching me play Hitman and fail miserably at it repeatedly? It would not be safe for work because I think that there's like adult themes in that, like murder and stuff. But shoes, boots, or sneakers? Right now, I'm wearing slippers, so that's the annoying answer. I've been trying to get into more men's fashion stuff recently, trying to like make an effort in a way that I haven't before. So like I've been getting into the watch game and all that other stuff. And as soon as I get vaccinated and it is responsible to do so, I would like to go try out some Red Wing boots. I've heard many good things about them. Sort of like the last pair of boots that you ever need to buy thing. They're like absurdly expensive, but I'd like to try some out and see if I can make them work and if they really are the last pair of boots or shoes that I'll ever need to buy. What do you think about Indian gurus? The guru thing is, for me, it's difficult for me to bias from growing up around a lot of new agey stuff where guruship was a marker of like, this person has everything figured out. This is a person who knows the ways of the universe and knows what you need to succeed in your life, which was garbage. It was garbage. And there were a lot of people who claimed to be gurus and all this other stuff. I don't know the primary source material for all of that stuff. My gut reaction of when I hear the word guru is to dismiss it as like nonsense. But I need to get into like the actual source material because usually when you get to the stage where it's like grossly over commercialized and everybody's selling you a new age book about guruship, it's gone way past it's taken like two things from a rich body of philosophy and thought and then just like gone off on some tangent that they can market to people. And I would like to read some of the source material. What are your plans for channel's future? Any plans to grow the channel? Crossovers with other philosophy. So I have been on the record before, and I maintain this position that I am not interested in like subscriber numbers beyond comprehension. Like 25,000 is already way more than I can hold in my head. And I am very lucky that the people who have gotten into the show thus far are all they're very kind, they're very thoughtful, and they make me they don't critique me for the sake of just like picking apart my ideas or making me feel bad. I am a delicate flower. I don't respond very well to negative criticism in many cases, and being exposed to the mainstream just opens the floodgates because it becomes being famous makes you somebody to poke fun at or to mock for social prestige, and I don't think that I could handle that. So no plans to grow the channel. Crossovers might be fun, but it would invite that sort of audience. So I don't know. Is a moneyless society possible? Absolutely. We've had societies before we had money. Whether it's possible with the precedent of a world where money has been brought into existence, I don't know. It would be nice. It would be nice if no human had wants that they could not afford. Thanks for all the great content. Truly one of YouTube's best hidden gems. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Don't ask him about Hitman. We'll be here all day. Hi, Rob. I have been playing way more Hitman than I should, and I've been insufferable about it. I have talked everybody who will listen to, I've talked their ears off about it, and it's pretty embarrassing. What do you think of the government banning sugar in many foods, heavily taxing it? I mean, it depends if it works, right? Like, I think that generally regulations that limit stuff, like people just find ways around it to get at something, especially something that their body tells them is good for them, or their body tells them is good. They just find ways of getting to it. the banning sugars or putting taxes on sugars or things like that. I think that a lot of people have an unknown preference for eating healthy things. I think that there are a lot of people who don't know what it feels like to not just consume gallons and gallons of sugar water every day. And not gallons, you know what I mean? And I think that giving them the opportunity to eat healthily and to know what that is, they might discover that they like it, but that gets into very sort of Orwellian, like, oh, I know what you really need sort of a thing. I think that interfering with what people state that they want is generally a dodgy proposition. Finally, my internet is stable enough yet now. Well, here we are. Hitman math, but could you show us how you surf the web, Hearts? I surf the web. I don't know. Do you want to see my setup? I'm not going to turn this around because my apartment is a mess right now. I have a ThinkPad laptop, a T510, and I usually use Firefox on there with stupid plugins. Don't count on a streamer career to pay your rent. Absolutely not. I am not an idiot. What watches do you have? Post pictures in the Discord. This is actually Rob was making fun of me earlier for my Hitman obsession, but this is actually a watch that Rob got for me. This was a gift for being there on an important day for him, and it's a lovely watch. It's a Kenneth Cole. It's got it's like weird and not round and stuff, and I dig it. It's the only white-faced watch that I have. I also have a Skagen that's got a black face and like a Timex Expedition that I wore on my wedding day. If you make a gaming channel, I'll watch it. Good to know. Thank you. Try the Red Wing Pecos model. I will do that. Do you wear any fragrances? No, they really bother me a lot. I think there's something about smelling, like if I'm wearing something and I keep on smelling it myself and I'm just like, oh, what is that? And I look around for the source of it. And if it's me, I can't get away from it. Anyway. And on that note, on that fragrance, the end of the list, and it's 3 hours. Thank you. Thank you, Zob. Favorite game of all time. I will end on that one because listening to me rant about smelling myself. Okay. Favorite game of all time. I am going to say it is 2 Rooms and a Boom, which is right here. This is a party game that I haven't been able to play. That's why I'm mentioning it right now. But 2 Rooms and a Boom is a party game where you've got 2 teams, a red team and a blue team, and it's like a social deduction game, and there's like all sorts of weird, silly roles in it. And it is very, very hard to get enough people together to make it fun. But if you can, it's fantastic. Everyone should smell nice. I try to smell like nothing, which allows other scents to pervade the stuff. Anyway, thank you all for coming to the live stream. Thank you all for being subscribers. It is pretty wild to have 25,000 people subscribed. I I hope that you're having a decent weekend and it continues to be good. And I hope that the pandemic is not getting to you too bad. It's been nice to hang out for a little while. And yeah, talk to you guys later. Join the Discord. I'll put a link. I'll put a link for the Discord. Come to the Discord and hang out and say hi.